Today I want to shine a spotlight on some incredible fan-made efforts to remake, reimagine, or renovate all kinds of favorite classics. However, the big thing is that none of these are ROM hacks. All of them are standalone games that had to be built from the ground up. Obviously, there are some amazing ROM hacks out there. Any one of the randomizers come to mind. But all of these games go a step above that, and these are all fan games that are worth playing. We'll start with a game that inspired me to make this list. This is Final Fantasy Renaissance, a complete reimagining of the original Final Fantasy I for the NES without losing what makes it an NES game. The absolute biggest addition this game has is that it adds in a ton of new playable jobs to create your party with. Now you have options like Dragoon, Dancer, Blue Mage, Dark Knight, and even way more than that. They all have their own battle abilities. Most of them are entirely unique. Like the Dragoon gets his jump attack. Dancer learns all kinds of different dances that allows her to buff your party or debuff the enemy team. Summoners can acquire all kinds of summons to use in fights. This alone gives you so many new party configurations, and they're also fun to check out, giving tons of replayability to an already very replayable game. Not to be left out, all the original jobs got some new support too. For example, the thief can now actually steal. No longer is he just good at running away, he can steal GP from enemies, and that is such a time save with how expensive spells and equipment gets early on. Fighters can now war cry for a power buff, white mages can pray to heal. There's something for everyone here, so even the classic jobs still feel fresh and new. And if that wasn't enough, every job also now has an overworld ability. These are special commands you use while exploring around. Thief, for example, can now treasure hunt for hidden items all over the world and find some really cool things and helpful items. Fighters can scream at NPCs to get out of the way, and I swear that is way more helpful than it actually sounds. Dark Knights can eat bats for permanent stat boosts, and bards can get the fuck out of my party. And of course, all the new jobs also get their class change when you reach Bahamut. Everyone gets more abilities, and now they all have limit breaks that you can use in battle. Every single job has a lot to discover about it. There's so much more exploration available here, as even talking to NPCs with different party leaders can change their dialogue, give you hints, or open up new opportunities for you. Some of them even have hidden side quests specifically for that class, like the monk or dancer, in order to acquire more abilities. There's also a handful of new hidden bosses scattered within, mostly for jobs like Blue Mage and Summoner, but they're still awesome to see. And of course, with a ton of new jobs, there's also a ton of new equipment for all of them. New two-handed swords, new armor, new weapons. It's all so cool. Naturally, all these changes generally makes the game much easier, but I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. Veteran players will be able to breeze through it, while new players will have just the right amount of challenge while still feeling like they're experiencing the original Final Fantasy game. Also, you can expect all the usual glitch and bug fixes here, so stats like intelligence work the way they're supposed to. All the new jobs are super exciting and really fun to play, but what I find the most incredible thing about the whole game is that the developer, Osmo, perfectly revitalizes the whole game with tons of new things, but doesn't push too far that it loses what makes Final Fantasy I feel like Final Fantasy I. There's still limited inventory space, needing to use clinics to revive, and the original magic system instead of MP. I absolutely love that, as it helps Final Fantasy Renaissance keeps its identity as the Final Fantasy I game. I can't recommend this one enough. I think it'll be my new de facto way to play Final Fantasy I whenever I want to, as I still have several of the jobs I haven't tried yet. I'd love to do some wacky combinations and find some way to make it work. And the cherry on top of it all, there is a New Game Plus mode. Seriously, play this one yourself, or at the very least, watch my playthrough of it over my gameplay channel. It is so good. Before we go any further, this video is sponsored by DeleteMe. Use the link in the description, scan the QR code on the screen, or use promo code ProJared to get 20% off. Every single day we're on the internet, your personal data is being gathered, whether you like it or not. Things like what we shop for, what links we like to click, or everything we post on social media. And that data gets collected by data brokers who then sell your information to whoever they want. This can put you in threat of getting doxxed, identity theft, or phishing scams. However, you can prevent that with the help of DeleteMe. DeleteMe targets and contacts the dozens of data brokers who have your personal details, and thanks to DeleteMe, they have to remove your information. The sooner you get started, the better. After putting in the information about me that I would like deleted and hit submit, and a few days later, I got the report on what they found, and yikes, I had no idea how bad it could get. Look at this, 2,400 listings reviewed, 52 brokers that had my info. They had stuff like my addresses, my family members, and what emails I've used. I can even go down the whole list of brokers that have my information and see that they're all in the process of being removed from their databases thanks to DeleteMe. To get started on protecting yourself and your family members, use my link in the description below or use the promo code ProJared to get 20% off. You can also scan the QR code on your screen right now to get started. Once again, use the link in the description, scan the QR code, or use promo code ProJared at checkout to get 20% off. And thank you to DeleteMe for sponsoring this video. Alright, back to the fan games. In a similar vein, the developer named Hoverbat remastered Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, and this one is so excellent. It faithfully recreates the entirety of Zelda 2 in Unity, right down to the movement, the jumping, the attacking, everything. It's great. But the fan game perfects it by overhauling the world with tons more secrets, items, and a lot of features. All of these are designed to make it feel more like a traditional Zelda game. For example, you now find pieces of heart in order to increase your maximum life instead of full heart containers. Even the magic upgrades are now in pieces. A lot of the usual spots you remember will now only have a piece of heart, meaning you have a lot more exploring and puzzle solving to do to find the rest. So there's a lot more secret spots on the world map, but with plenty of clues from townspeople to tell you where to look. Speaking of towns, they all have much better dialogue that better points you in the direction you need to go. They even have some mini games within to acquire new items, and you'll find some people who will sell you treasure maps so that hidden items are displayed on the overworld. I think the best upgrades implemented are a lot of quality of life things that address a lot of the complaints people have about the original game. You now have a map screen to use in dungeons. If you game over in a dungeon, you continue at the start of it instead of all the way back at Zelda's palace. All the towns now have a fast travel system, extra lives are now permanent upgrades, and if you game over, you'll still retain some of your gained experience points instead of losing them all. I really like the added puzzles too. There are a dozen orange slimes hidden throughout the entire world that essentially function as puzzles and mini-boss fights. It's absolutely worth finding them all for an all-new item that I would not dare spoil here. This is the perfect way to replay Zelda 2. Or if you're someone who has never played it because you've only heard that it was a black sheep in the Zelda franchise, this is also the best way to try it out. And once you play through it, definitely check out the New Game Plus mode that features a new final boss and a new ending. And then after that, you can enjoy the built-in randomizer mode and the different soundtrack options. Seriously, this fan project is phenomenal and makes Zelda 2 worth a second look by everyone. This one may be a bit older, but is also one of the best out there, if you can find it. Another Metroid 2 remake, or AM2R, hit the scene back in 2016 and is so good, it was literally nominated at the Game Awards. As the name suggests, it's a complete remake of Metroid 2 for the Game Boy. The obvious upgrades are the graphics with completely original sprite work and environment designs, and the redesigned enemies and bosses are superb. It also has a lot of gameplay improvements found later in the Metroid series, as you can now wall jump and ledge grab, which feel great. A lot of the areas were expanded and all new ones added, which allows Samus to find way more upgrades than before, with most of them being familiar. There's now the gravity suit, the speed boosters, super missiles, power bombs. There's also some convenience techniques added, like being able to instant lay morph ball bombs vertically to do an easy morph ball bomb jump, and charging your shots sucks in nearby item drops, just like in the Metroid Prime series. It's one of those games where you can feel the absolute love and adoration for this series in every single screen of the game. I can't get over how gorgeous the game looks. Whatever you call this color palette really pops, and I like that it features green so heavily as a nice little nod to the green display of the original Game Boy screen. So much credit and respect should go to the game's original programmer, Dr. M64. Of course, Nintendo completely shut down AM2R with a DMCA notice since in 2017, they released their own remake with Samus Returns on the Nintendo 3DS. But to be honest, I think I still prefer the fan game over the official one, which feels bizarre to say. And while the updates for the game have legally finished, unofficially, fans have continued to release new updates for the game that are worth a look. You can play through the game again on New Game Plus mode with increased difficulty, or even try the Fusion mode, which puts Samus back in her Metroid Fusion power suit and has the X-Parasites show up as a real threat. And of course, it wouldn't be a fan game without a built-in randomizer mode. Fans have even added in all new endings to get. I streamed this game back when it came out in 2016, and I could not get over what a high-quality project it is. It was way ahead of the curve when it comes to fan games, and at the time, people were clamoring for Nintendo just to release it as an official product because it's that good. Because of the DMCA takedowns, there's no official source to easily find another Metroid 2 remake, but it isn't too difficult to find with a little bit of effort. And as for the developer, Dr. M64, don't worry about him, he's doing alright. He went on to work on Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Look, we all know the Castlevania series isn't the same as it once was, since the most popular and loved of the franchise were the wide open, free-roaming exploration games instead of the linear, level by level as it started. So why not make the old games to be that way? Castlevania Revamped get it? Remakes the entirety of Castlevania 1 for the NES as a modern-day Metroidvania style of game, while still very much retaining every single thing that makes it Castlevania 1. You're still whipping enemies, using hearts to use sub-weapons, and fighting chicken hidden in the walls. Only now it's with a wide-open map, a ton of new mobility options, and lots of all-new upgrades to find. You'll start off with the basic whip, but eventually you'll have 4 different whips you can freely switch between. And one whip isn't inherently more powerful than the other, they all just have different options. For example, the Ice Whip is the slowest but deals the heaviest damage on hit, whereas the Fire Whip can be held out for an extra second to deal multiple small hits. They're also used for exploration and secrets, as some blocks need a certain element to be destroyed. It also plays closer to a modern title with all the new movement upgrades you can find. You already begin by moving faster and having more control over your jumps than the original game, but you'll quickly expand on that with finding power-ups like double jump, a wall jump, and an air dash. For even more customization, Revamped also has a tarot card system which allows you to power up certain things. You can spend money dropped by enemies to equip cards that improve every sub-weapon. It'll do things like make the axe bigger or make the boomerang faster. There's also options to upgrade Simon Belmont himself, allowing you to critical hit, remove the knockback from damage, or have a small chance to restore life with every whip hit. You can only equip 3 cards at a time, so you can't get grossly overpowered, and there's so many good options, it was honestly tough to choose which upgrades to keep on at times. Importantly, everything is designed all around these changes. A lot of the hidden upgrades require good use of these abilities or a combination of them. There's a Metroid-style map screen, complete with white dots to indicate where a hidden item was on the map for you to go back to, and easily the coolest change is that every single boss is overhauled to handle these power-ups. They'll have all new attack patterns and sometimes just be massive. Like, look how big the monster is! And now he has flamethrower arms. This is another one of those fan-made remakes that truly understands the source material and shows a lot of respect to it while making it accessible for modern audiences. I love how it's still the original Castlevania through and through, since you're not earning experience points or leveling up or putting on different equipment. It also has bonus unlockables for your completion time and how many items you find, just like a Metroid game. Castlevania Revamped is only a few months old at the time of this video, and I sincerely hope more people check it out because it's an awesome way to replay the origins of Castlevania. This one came out of nowhere and pretty much took over the entire Pokemon streaming community. PokeRogue is exactly what it sounds like, turning Pokemon battles into a roguelike experience, all playable in just your web browser. You'll begin with the starters of every generation, but every single one you capture gets added to this list, allowing you to eventually start with whatever Pokemon you want. Every single fight is very fast-paced, experience is shared to the entire team, and after you win, you have several selections of rewards to choose from. You'll get things like rare candies for instant leveling, maybe a hold item like a berry you can give to one of your Pokemon, and sometimes TMs will show up to get some powerful moves. You'll also get passive items that'll provide different bonuses like improved catch rates, more money from trainer fights, lures for double battles, and evolution items. There's no region or walking the world map. This is purely about battling and seeing how far you can go. This is not as easy as it sounds, as trainers will show up with viable teams and smart AI to choose the right attacks against you. Probably the coolest addition are literal boss fights, where you'll need to battle against something that has a load of hit points and multiple shields to fight through first. These are really cool and can be devastating if you're not prepared, so there's a lot of thought that goes into prepping your team right, spending money wisely, and reviving when you can. The whole thing is very addicting, as long as you like Pokemon battling. There really is something to seeing how far you can go, with leaderboards and whatnot to climb. Plus, I really like starting with unusual choices instead of the fire, water, grass types that we're used to. And you can go for a long time, as the maximum Pokemon level goes up to 200. There's even eggs you can collect and hatch for additional rare Pokemon. If you do the classic mode, you'll get the familiar playthrough of taking down gym leaders, Arrival, and the Elite Four, and Daily Run lets you play through whatever global challenges are set with pre-made teams. It's a lot of fun and very easy to get into and spend a lot of time on it. I'm always a fan when people can take a game a lot of people are familiar with and turn it into something endlessly replayable with roguelike elements. PokeRogue is one of the finest examples of doing just that. Hey, have you ever wanted to play through Super Mario Bros. But with characters from all your other favorite NES games? Well, now you can! Super Mario Crossover is a Flash game from over a decade ago that does exactly that. It is the original Super Mario Bros. Through and through, only you can select from a ton of different playable characters that all change the way the game plays. For example, playing as Link lets you use his sword to attack enemies right away, including up and down stabs, and his power-ups increase the damage on his sword or his boomerang, whereas Samus goes from Zero Suit to Power Suit, and she can get missiles to destroy enemies. And if you want to go on easy mode, just play as Bill Reiser from Contra and watch him annihilate everything in front of him with the spread gun. The most impressive feat feat was that there's like a dozen different graphic styles you can play as. It may be the original Super Mario Brothers, but you can make everything look like Mario 2, Mario 3, Mario Land 2, or even change it all to stuff like Castlevania or Zelda 2. This updates the graphic style for every single enemy and whoever you're playing as well. So if you've ever wondered what Sophia the Third would look like in Mario All-Stars graphics, well, there you go. If the graphics options and all the characters weren't enough, there's also a ton of skins for all of them to play as other famous characters, although they play exactly the same. So instead of Link, you can play as Zelda, Proto-Man, a ton of Final Fantasy characters, Pit, and more. Seriously, it's insane how many different options there are to choose from and just have fun with. I like playing the survival mode, where I try to see how far I can go, but if a character dies, they stay dead and I have to use someone else. This one's a little harder to play these days, since it was a Flash game and Flash has been long since dead. But thankfully, there are still some websites out there that can let you play it or download the original files to make it work. Just be careful where you click for that. But if you can, give it a shot. It's a seriously fun time. Along the same lines, what if a bunch of different characters all had to get through a platforming game in the ultimate crossover? Mushroom Kingdom Fusion is a huge fan game that aims to make massive worlds with lots of people to play as. There's Mario and Luigi, of course, but also Ryu Hayabusa, Samus, Link, Zero, Wario, Waluigi, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Sir Arthur. Even though it's a platformer, it's all original levels and not recreating any one game. Instead, you go through a ton of worlds based on different games. For example, it may start looking like a Mario game, but you'll soon find yourself in the world of Mega Man, or the Sega Genesis world, or Our Real Earth filled with metal slug enemies. There are too many references and familiar enemies to list here, just a constant barrage of nostalgia and familiarity. It's cool to see how they've made all these different enemies work in a platforming game, complete with boss fights. Every single character plays completely differently too, from mechanics to movement. Mega Man jumps, slides, and moves like Mega Man, whereas Zero has things like air dashes and wall jumps. Everyone has their own power-ups as well, which are amazing. Samus can get really strong once she's at max with wave beams, super missiles, and the screw attack. She can also take 5 hits. Compare that to someone like Waluigi, who starts small, gets big, and then has his Mario Strikers uniform to start kicking soccer balls at people. And while he makes enemies drop more coins than anyone else, he also loses a bunch whenever he dies. And the money is helpful because there's an in-game shop where you can purchase extra power-ups. These can be getting multiple selectable weapons to swap between for Mega Man, Beat to protect you from falling off of ledges, and some items give appearance changes, like buying the Buster Sword power-up changes Link into Cloud Strife. If you're lucky, you can find some secret exits letting you go into special fusion worlds, which are levels that combine games together, like the Mushroom Hill fusion level that combines Super Mario World with Sonic and Knuckles. And there's some way out there ones like a fusion of Mega Man Battle Network or Halo and Contra. It's really creative stuff. My only real gripe with the game is that the levels are really long and each world has like 20 stages to play through, which can just get exhausting, especially if you're not digging the world you're currently in. Still, there's a lot of love, effort, and creativity that a bunch of fans put forward here. It's very different and still worth checking out, especially if you love finding all the secret exits and playing around with all the characters available. Thanks again, DeleteMe, for sponsoring this video. To get your data removed from the internet, check out DeleteMe via my link in the description and get 20% off. I know there are a ton of fan games out there, and I'd love to explore some more. Tell me in the comments down below if there's one I missed or one I really should play, as I've been having a lot of fun playing all of these so far. And who knows, maybe I'll end up checking them out on stream someday and be pleasantly surprised, just like I was with all the games listed in this video.